You're watching World Insight, still to come on our program. The scientific community scrambles to find a drug that can cure patients sickened by the new coronavirus. What treatments are in the pipeline? We find out right after this break with the people in the know, coming from China CDC. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. There is no known cure for the novel coronavirus this time, and doctors are eager to find and help those infected. But scientists caution that only carefully conducted trials will determine which measures work. What have clinical experiments revealed so far? Are there any drugs or vaccines on the horizon? Earlier, I spoke to Shao Yiming, chief expert on AIDS at the China Center for Disease Control and Prevention. He's also the vice president of the Chinese Society of Microbiology. He shared many insights. Thank you, sir, for joining us. My first question for you is regarding the assessment given by Mr. Zhong Nanshan recently. He's been talking about that there's likely to be a peak of the cases in the middle and the end of February. And he said particularly that that is not necessarily mean there's going to be a turning point. To you, how should we assess his statement? To you, where is likely to be the peak?
Yeah, I think Professor Zhong is a very experienced scientist, and he has been on the first line in Hubei for several times. So his words, I think, is very credible. I think his observation is from a clinical scientist, from the patients they are treated. From epidemiology, there also assessment for the peak. There are also mathematical modeling work done by the modelers. According to those epidemiology data, the peak should already be there. Initial infection, at least. It should be going down for the confirmed cases already outside Hubei, already continues down for more than 1 week. And the major concern is about the second and the third generation transmission.
That's right.
If we can contain the second and third, we may already reach the turning point.
Mr. Shao, let me also ask you about the debate that we've been seeing in China playing out, which is the debate between whether we should use Western medicine or the Chinese medicine. What are likely to be the roles that these two different branches of medicine in terms of treating the patients and also in terms of seeking solutions? Mr. Shao, that debate happened also during SARS. That debate happened during various public health crises. What do you make of it now, Mr. Shao?
Traditional medicine can play certain rules there and to maintain the balance of our immune system. But that it's just, in theory. But if which traditional medicine really can help, it has to do the clinical trial, have to test. Everything has to be, no matter Western medicine or traditional medicine, has to be evidence-based.
Yes, it needs to be evidence-based, particularly at this point. But Mr. Shao, as you may know, the Chinese medicine or traditional medicine, one of the difficult parts for the rest of the world to understand and also to make it be able to confirm its position in the world has a lot to do with it's difficult for the clinical trial because it's supposed to, the portion, for example, and the different elements being used in the one recipe are varied according to every person it attend to. So it seems that we do not necessarily, during a crisis time, likely to have any result, at least regarding the traditional medicine, isn't it, Mr. Shao?
I mean, the theory of treatment is different of these two medicines. The Western medicine, you have to find the target, the drug target, and then you look for a drug to can hit that target. So that is their theory. Then in that system, you need a pure compound. We are specific to that target to be considered as a drug. But in traditional medicine, the theory is how to maintain our body's balance. Any disease do not need one specific pathogen. It's just out of the balance. So how to adjust back the balance of our body, for example, in this case, the immune system. You need a recipe which is according to the traditional medicine theory, yin and yang, and how to what is the balance? Is the yin too weak or the yang too strong? So they can adjust back the balance. So that balance not necessarily need just one compound. They can be several. Maybe you have to tune both yin and yang at the same time. So I think the two theory both are useful. It could learn from each other. Especially for this disease, it's not just the virus caused, it's the immune system out of balance. Right. I think you antiviral and you adjust the immune system balance at the same time, it can have a win-win situation.
Another debate regarding this, Mr. Shao, with your years working in the field, is that some of the recipes used in traditional medicine had to do with animal parts. Some even have to do with the waste of animals. So at this point, we still do not know the source yet of this virus. Is it a bit too dangerous, some argue, to use certain recipes of traditional medicine? Your thoughts, sir? I know you are not a Chinese medical doctor, but I do want to have your views because you've been dealing with public health crisis like this many times. Tell me more about your thoughts, sir.
The traditional medicine, they come a long way, several thousand years longer than the Western medicine, at least 1,000 years longer than the Western medicine. What they have been doing is they do not use animal. They use patient to test the herbal medicine. We have this Shen Nong Chang Bai Cao, even the traditional doctors themselves have to test. That is a long accumulated human trial data has been recorded in history. So we cannot see which system is better.
Right. Another thing, Dr. Shao, is the debate about so-called the patient number zero, meaning who were or who was the original patient infected by this virus. I know you've been talking to different groups about the debates about this. Tell me more about your assessment and why it matters.
I think that is the source of the new infection. We can get direct information from the patient zero. How this virus jumped from animal to human. So what is animal or animal groups who carry this new virus can infect human. So that is why the patient zero is very important for us to know the origin of the disease, the target of the transmitter, and then we can do precise intervention to block the virus from animal to human. And also, a second is that the patient zero, they transmit, he or she transmits virus to other patients. And so that is how to know the what we call the hotspot of this new epidemic. Are they single one or are they several? So these are the critical questions. But oftentimes you find not the patient 0, but the patient 1 or patient 2, which is equally important. And then you should already trigger the prevention campaign. You don't need to waiting for the patient 0. This is what China did at this time. In many countries, epidemic prevention is done like that.
Lastly, before we go, Dr. Shao, I do want to ask you about the vaccines. WHO talk about 18 months at least. However, we have hearing mixed news coming in, suggesting one company is having it already in the trials and the other company is trying to get permission. You know, things like that. Of course, there are commercial interests in it. There's also really good hearts being put into it. Mr. Shao, what do you make of the current stage of vaccines? Vaccines, are they coming from China or vaccines that are coming from international collaboration? Dr. Shao.
For coronavirus, why we do not yet have a vaccine, there's one main reason is that because in the early times, the coronavirus is just caused mild common cold. So do not trigger the industry to manufacture the vaccine against that. And the last time, like 16, 17 years ago, we have SARS. There are already efforts for vaccine development, including my group. We use the HIV vaccine platform. We also manufactured a vaccine. We finished the animal trial. Because that epidemic has been cleared, fully controlled. So there's not commercial interest. Often, if you don't have a commercial interest, things don't move on. Money talks. But I think at this time, the whole society of China and the scientific community have got a heavy lessons. We could not to look at only the commercial values to decide to move on or not move on. I'm pretty determined, pretty much knowing that this time the vaccine will continue. Or soon, traditional vaccine takes like WHO said, like 18 months. For some new technology vaccine, like nucleic acid vaccine, either RNA or DNA, they can be faster. So we already saw there are scientific group and companies, both in China and in US, they have a plan to go to the RNA vaccine first, to animal trial. But there are also uncertainties for this new technology. New technology means also high risk because they have not been tested before. So we still have to wait and see. But anyway, I think the efforts will continue. If the vaccine cannot be used in this epidemic, it will certainly in a vaccine very fast ready for the next epidemic.
Just very quickly, Mr. Shao, can I confirm with the vaccines development you just mentioned, how quickly are we going to see the latest vaccine coming out regarding novel coronavirus, COVID-19? Give me a time frame.
I think the RNA vaccine, they could finish the animal trial maybe in 2 to 3 months time. And it will also depending on how how fast the regulatory agency can approve that vaccine for clinical trial.
Yes.
But in this the crisis, they have a different method to review the vaccine. I anticipate it will also be faster than usual.
You're watching World Insight. Still to come on our program. The novel coronavirus' most dangerous trait is its infectivity. How can doctors harness biotechnology to halt the virus? Welcome back. This is World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. Now let's peek at the boundless potential of modern biotechnology. A number of companies are using new biotechnology to rapidly deploy vaccines for the COVID-19 coronavirus. But is the race for a coronavirus vaccine a sprint or a marathon? Earlier, I talked to David Ho, the director of the Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center and professor of medicine from Columbia University. His laboratory has spent the last 20 years on developing vaccines against HIV-1, both in the lab and also in clinic. As a long-term contagion researcher, Mr. Ho shares his expertise to shed some light on the coronavirus outbreak this time. Let's listen in.